So, Debi, welcome you to the news today, and you're going to take us into the subject of organ harvesting.
I am. Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. And yeah, this is a massive subject, and I have been asked by a number of people, please could I cover organ donation and transplantation, but I'm fear that it raises more questions than we're probably going to answer. And I'm hoping at least today we can start the conversation. So let's go back to remember between 1988 and 1995. Many of you will remember Alder Hey. Forgotten for 25 years. The article is entitled, obviously it's a lot older than that now, how the 1,000 infant bodies were found after Alder Hey, where organs were removed after post-mortems and were left in laboratory storerooms. And as a result, the Royal Liverpool Children's Inquiry report, massive report, if you haven't read it, it's quite harrowing. But as a result of Alder Hey, we have another regulator. I found another regulator, which is another whole new segment of its own, but it's called the Human Tissue Authority, and it was set up as a result of Alder Hey as the regulator. But what does it actually do? What do they regulate? So in the next slide, you'll see that it's a number of things. They cover a number of acts: the Human Tissue Act, the Human Tissue Quality and Safety for Human Application Regulations. It covers all sorts, but you're looking at anatomy, which is teaching aids for medical students, bone marrow stem cell donation, organ donation, organs after death, post-mortem, public display and research. Like I say, it's a whole new subject of its own. But I want to focus on organ donation today because currently on the waiting list, there are 7,000 waiting for organs. So a little video to introduce you. Will you do it today? Have a look at this.
I did it waiting for the bus.
We did it together.
I saw them.
We did it together, as a team.
2 minutes now could save up to 9 lives. Confirm your decision to be an organ donor. It's the best thing you'll do today. Visit organdonation.nhs.uk.
And trust me, we're going to go and visit them in a minute. But I just want to show you that on the column website, we've done an awful lot of work on organ donation. This is just a few examples. So if you go to the search bar on the UK column website and put in organ donation, organ transplantation, lots more will come up. But this afternoon, I just want to focus on William. At the story of William. William is 11 weeks old and he is in need of a heart. He's our youngest patient who is relying on another family to agree to donate their child's heart, because you have to remember that little people need little organs. Currently, there are about 250 children waiting on the organ donation list, and apparently 38 of those are needing hearts. So here's another little video, Waiting to Live.
There's not much I can do. I long to live like you. I'll wait here patiently for a lifeline. We give it to me, and I wonder if I will see another sunrise. We give it to me.
So you see, the pressure is on for parents to donate organs, and the Behavioural Insights team have been very busy working with the DVLA, the NHS Blood and Transplant Service, the Department of Health and Government Digital Services to design a different messaging to encourage us all to donate. And these little tiny changes have actually led to 96,000 extra people need or wanting to, or saying that they're opting in to donate. So how have they been doing this? Well, they've been using randomized controlled trials in conjunction with, you can see there, the Cabinet Office, Department of Health, Government Digital Services, and DVLA. And another shot you'll see of the test that they're using, which is called Test, Learn and Adapt, which is applying behavioural insights to organ donation. I think there's another slide, next one, for Test, Learn and Adapt. Is it that there it is? And you can see the people involved in that. And I've just highlighted Dr. David Halpin because doesn't his name always crop up everywhere? But what does this actually mean? You know, Brian and all of the team, we've talked about the nudge technique, but what's sludge? Because sludge is the opposite of nudge, and it makes a process much more difficult. It's to create friction deliberately. So, for example, if you sign up to a 30-day free trial, you give your card details and they tell you that after 30 days, if you don't want it anymore, it's up to you to cancel the service. And similarly, nations. So if we look in Max and Kira's bill, which was passed from 2020, we can see that we've gone from an opt-in scheme to an opt-out. So what do they ask you to do? They ask you to register your decision online. Now, I have to say to everyone, I registered opting out years ago, and I even got a letter. However, that doesn't apply anymore. And it would seem that anybody that has a letter, you have been probably opted back in. So if we go back to the red and green slide there, with how to opt in and how to opt out. So register your decision. Please opt out online. It doesn't seem to count any other way, and it is quite a simple procedure. In any event, there is a phone number that you can phone, and the phone number's here, 0300 123 2323. So then I went to look at transplant units in the UK, and there are quite a lot of transplant units, and I wanted to see how many transplants were going on in each unit. And on the next slide, you'll see that in the year between April 23 and May 24, 4,657 transplants had taken place, with 462 of those in Birmingham. But what is the UK's vision? Because clearly the UK have a vision. And here it is, Organ Donation and Transplantation 2030, Meeting the Need, which is a 10-year vision. And this covers all nations. When I went to look at the forward, it indicated that deceased organ donation had risen by 56%. And you'll see there that I've just arrowed Matt Hancock's name, which I'm sure will give you much confidence. But anyway, going further on into the document, the ambition is that the UK becomes a world-leading service, working with international colleagues to increase donors and transplants. Now, working with international colleagues, does that mean organ donations that are given in this country will stay in this country, or are they being shipped out? I'm not quite sure on that. But if one of your loved ones does donate organs, they'll be given, after their death, the St. John's Award. And you will be given the award to increase visibility. And it's a gift from the government to say thank you very much. But if you're a living donor, so you're maybe wanting to give a kidney, or maybe one of your relatives needs a kidney, you're going to get awarded a living donation pin. And they're going to be looking too at transplant as the early option. So this is explore it at an early stage. So you can see where we're going with this. And the word sustainable, it doesn't take long to see the word sustainable for sustainable goals. And here we go, a sustainable, responsive UK service. We're going to maximise transplant opportunities in the UK. And just repeat that, maximised. And right at the top, it says living donation will become an expected part of care, where clinically appropriate for all in society. So I'm quite concerned about the wordage on that. But what is organ donation? So I went to look at the organ donation site, and they say that most organs come from those who have died. But my question to that is, have they? And how important is this decision right now to all of us? So I just want to highlight what the websites say. And they say you really do need to make a decision. And I would suggest everybody does make an informed decision. And they say you must register your decision. So if you want to opt out, you must register it. And please inform your family. But I also want to make it clear on the next slide as well. If you decide not to opt out, it will be presumed that you are opted in. So it will be presumed. Organ donation law varies across all nations, literally. So I've just got, there's a phone number here. If anybody wants more information on the law and the opt-out, there's another phone number, 0300 303 2094. But what is deemed consent? On the next slide, it talks about consent. And if you have not opted out, you will have deemed to have given consent, authorization, and your consent will be presumed to be an organ donor. And there's a little tiny short video here on the law surrounding organ donation.
At the end of a rainbow, you'll find a pot of gold.
The law around organ donation in England has changed to an opt-out system to allow more people to save more lives. But you still have a choice. Whatever you decide, it's important to tell your family and friends to give them the certainty to support your decision at a difficult time. Visit organdonation.nhs.uk to find out more.
So that, as I say, there's a lot to this subject, but I just want to highlight a couple of other stories. So the BBC ran this story, organ harvesting, trafficked for his kidney and now forced into hiding. This is Daniel, who was sent from Nigeria and who ended up at the Royal Free Hospital, my own training hospital, for a life-changing opportunity, only to find out that he'd been sent over to give a kidney. So trafficking, that this was the first prosecution back in 2023. So this is fact. Also, Trenton McKinley is 13 and he suffered brain injuries after a tragic freak utility accident. But as soon as his parents had signed the forms for him to give his organs, he woke up. So I just wanted to highlight those couple of details because Professor Patrick Pulicino has said you cannot diagnose death. So I went to look at the Code of Practice for the Procedure for Diagnosis and Confirmation of Brainstem Function. This is a massive document, and probably for another news, we'll go into it in more detail. But basically, you need 2 doctors with more than 5 years experience. One has to be a consultant. They need to work together. Some of the tests that they do are on the following slide, and you can see the coma pathway as well. I think yes, that's the one. If you just click on, there's the coma pathway. As I say, it's a massive subject, but I want to highlight this trial that is going on because the body is kept in a very good condition prior to donation. So it's treated like a surgical procedure. People that are giving organs such as heart, lungs, are left in intensive care and they're looked after very well. This is Professor John Dark from Newcastle. He's cardiothoracic surgeon, and he started the world's largest ever randomized controlled trial into organ donation in dead patients. So these are patients that have already been proclaimed dead, and he has now decided that he wants to start a clinical trial to give these patients, prior to their organs being harvested, a statin called Simvastatin. This has been funded for £1.3 million. They're trying to enroll 2,600 in inverted commas dead patients, because what does it mean to be dead is my big question. And there's a little video here, very, very short video of what happens after you die.
If you're registered to be an organ or tissue donor after death, here's how the process works. When the time for donation comes, the donor is moved from the critical care unit to the operating theater. So it would be very similar to somebody undergoing an operation in terms of the way that we approach it, the professionalism in the operating room. We have anesthesia, we have the donor surgical teams. At the end of the process, the machines that have kept the heart and the lungs going are stopped so that we can then remove the organs. All the incisions systems are closed with great care, the same way that we would for someone who's having an elective operation, so that they're cosmetically that things look fine. Then they go to the morgue and then are released to the families within a relatively timely fashion, because people obviously have preparations for funerals. For bereaved families, it's a real silver lining in the context that can otherwise be quite difficult, that the last act of their loved one was to save the life of several other people. So I would say anybody, number one, who's willing to be an organ donor should sign up to be an organ donor.
They don't take organs from dead people, but also the WEF are looking at using pig hearts. It's medical first. They've all failed so far. It's called xenotransplantation. And there's the next slide, just to tie this segment up, is the ethics and welfare of animals with regards to xenotransplantation. And if all else fails, I guess 3D printing. We might be relying on 3D printing. But my concerns are really, is this going to put more pressure on families? The more the public give, the more they seem to want. And will we be encouraging euthanasia or assisted dying to take place in an operating theatre? Much to talk about.
Debi, thank you very much for that. A lot to talk about. We'll talk about some of it in extra time after today's news. This subject is so important.